this meeting to order. First with the roll call, Director Skinner,
Here.
Director Jack Jacobs,
Here.
Director Carter,
Here.
Vice Chair Haslam,
Here.
Chair Lawson.
Here.
And the next on the agenda is the invocation and then the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you for this evening. Thank you for the people you assembled here. And thank you for the blessings that you give us nonstop. And Father, that we take for granted daily, but the friends that you put in our lives. And Father, all this I lift up in your Son's name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, we have the adoption of the agenda. This also includes the consent agenda as well as the regular agenda items.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion. We adopt the agenda and the consent as stated.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Public comment.
Mr. Chair, two comments. About a week ago, we had the audited financial statements on the agenda. Last 2 years, you never talked about these documents at all, not one word. And now it's off the agenda.
You stated we can ask questions, and I have questions, sir. Moreover, I read today in the Lateral Chronicle that there's been a ruling by Judge Wright. And I haven't had a chance to see the ruling. I'm sure your attorney has seen it. Sir, any ruling that suggests that a special local law of this legislature can be repealed by any referendum, regardless of how it's drafted, is simply wrong. That what people don't understand is that a municipality is not a political subdivision of the state of Florida. It's not a political subdivision of Alachua County. Alachua County is a political subdivision of the state of Florida, but not the city of Gainesville. A municipality is a creature of the legislature. It is created by the legislature, which gives it its initial charter. And when the legislature amends the charter, it's final. And that cannot be thwarted by any local ordinance passed by any means. And that's just a foundational aspect of our constitutional framework. The city of Gainesville has to become a separate territory like Puerto Rico to do what they're trying to do, sir. It's a legal insurrection. It's an affront. And the way you know how invalid it is, nobody has intervened with them because they're outliers. They're a fringe that nobody is aligning themselves with. So you're an authority, and you need to act like an authority when your very existence is threatened and when ongoing ambiguity and litigation for years is guaranteed. Any ruling that invites another crack at it on the theory that it's going to be successful is wrong and needs to be appealed. Republicans have packed the appellate courts. You'll do well. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi there, sir. I'm Don Shepard, and disagree with everything he said. But what I want to say is the nerve of this city commission to take and even approach you is off the charts. They are violators of our Constitution. They're violators of their own office. They're violators of the contract in which they put before you. I hadn't read that contract, but they need to stop saying everything they're saying, like Mr. Carnes is saying. It is not of the people. GRU has been of the people, and they have the staff to prove it. I'm a Republican. I'm not no Democrat because I'm not dumb like they are. And everything a Democrat has done is proven to be an outlier, as Mr. Carnage calls it. And they still, today, I didn't get a chance to say it at the city commission meeting, but I'm going to say it here, is that they need to be removed from office. They were told by Tallahassee that they can pack up their bags and move out of the city hall because they were going to appoint Republicans into that office. They said today that this is going to happen May 5th. Well, where's the proof of it? Bring that proof and show that on the overhead or whatever you got to do so that the people have the truth of what he's proposing. And that's all I have to say. Thank you
Thank you.
for this opportunity.
Good evening. My name is Janice Gary, and I'm a longtime GRU customer, both for my own home and for some rental properties. The judge has spoken. While we're waiting for a written ruling, we know that Judge George Wright said the voters of Gainesville had a right to the referendum as a ballot issue. He also said there is some unclear language. GRU customers have made it clear. In 2018, we voted on a referendum to keep GRU under the direction of elected city officials. In 2024, by 73%, we made it extremely clear that we want GRU returned to our city elected officials. You folks are in a difficult position. You've been asked to serve and make decisions out of political motives, not out of genuine interest in GRU and its customers. It's been unpleasant for you, and it's been very unpleasant for thousands of GRU customers. Wouldn't it be great to serve GRU customers rather than political operatives? Wouldn't it be great to go to community businesses and places of worship and events knowing that you have served the people well, that you have respected the majority vote? Reliable power and water quality are basic necessities like food and shelter. Making decisions about power production is best done with thoughtfulness by knowledgeable people with a sincere interest in quality services. Making decisions out of a sense of vengeance or personal benefit is a low bar for public service. I invite you to rethink your position. Use Judge Wright's comments as an opportunity for reset. Let the rulings lie. Voters were within their rights to vote on a referendum. Return to your lives, your businesses, your families, and let the City Commission and the voters they represent figure out the language that it was concerning to Judge Wright. The voters have decided. Return our municipal utility to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Angela Castile. First, I'm going to ask, is this general public comment or no? It's a general.
Meant to be about the agenda.
Okay, so would you like me to sit down until general public comment? Okay.
Okay, seeing as no more public comment on the agenda, back to the board. Any comments on the agenda?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes as stated. I'm going to wait a few seconds, boys.
I wasn't here, so. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll second that.
So we have a motion and a second to the approval of the minutes. Public comment on approval of the minutes. No public comment. Back to the board. Any additional comment?
No, sir.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Next is the chair comments.
Thank you. Unfortunately, yesterday, we did not receive the ruling that we had hoped for. And so I'd like to make just a few comments on that, and I know that many of you, I suspect many of you would like to as well. You know, over the last year, I'm incredibly proud of the work that GRU administration and leadership have conducted with the approval of the board. When I think back at the accomplishments in a very short time, we have reduced the base rate of our electricity rates for 60% of our customers. We have signed purchase agreements that will reduce our gas cost, which will be passed directly to our customers in the coming years. We have accelerated our debt reduction plan that will potentially, in the long run, result in an upgrade of our bond rating. Any upgrade in our bond rating will result in over $60 million in savings to the utility. In just a short time, administration, with the support of the board, have really done some tremendous things to support our utility. And I hope, no matter what happens, that these decisions will stand. If our bond rating is downgraded again, every percentage downgrade is a $60 million hit to the utility. So those things need to be considered. But I just want to say that I'm proud to serve on this committee. I do disagree with your comment, ma'am. There was no political operatives. This is on me. This is my personal approach, and so I disagree with your comment there. It is my belief that we were appointed by the governor, and that we are here under House Bill 1645, and that it is our responsibility to continue to advocate for this bill and advocate for this authority. And so I would recommend to my fellow board members that we authorize the CEO to continue to file an appeal and continue to support our authority.
Would you like a motion to that, sir?
It's, I don't know if we want to let the rest of the board members have some discussion and comment, but
Well, I just did, okay, yeah.
at some point, I think that would be great, whenever you think is the right time. With that, that concludes my comments. Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, I'm fine with making that motion if you're okay with it, and then the board members could discuss it.
Sure.
Sure. You know, I'd like to make a motion that we authorize the general manager, CEO, to file an appeal, and at whatever means it takes to go forward with that. Does that give you enough direction?
Ed?
Okay. No, I got a nod from the attorney. We don't need that.
I was writing things down. Yes,
Okay.
that gives me direction.
I'd second that.
So we have a motion and a second to authorize the CEO to work with our legal counsel to file an appeal to the most recent ruling. Public comment?
Mr. Chair, Jim Conish. Mr. Folds and Mr. Walker stole a page out of my playbook many years ago and hired brilliant young people, trained them, and gave them a lot of responsibilities. And you're in good hands. Not only do you have to appeal this ruling if it comes out as claimed, this has been reduced to writing, but I would also move the court to stay any more referendums until this issue is decided, to spare the utility and the bondholders from the uncertainty by the ongoing nuisance suits and antics by the Gainesville City Commission and their cronies. As you noted at the last meeting, this is very bad for the utility. This is very, very bad for the utility's customers. This is very bad for the people that work for the utility. This is bad for everybody except the people that ran this utility into the ground. And you could just look at letters Mr. Bilarski has written to the Latsville Chronicle, how the people that are doing this, they took all the utility made back to 2005, except for like 5 or 10%, which is what happened with Enron. They took all the profits out, the accountants covered it up, it was a house of cards that fell down. GRU is not that much different. Mr. Bilarski is not Houdini. You know, you're on the Titanic after it hit the iceberg. Rearranging the deck chairs is not going to be sufficient. You have to decide, are you deploying the lifeboats before the whole thing collapses? That's why I urge you to follow strictly the mandates of this legislation and make the changes you've been directed to change on SOA losses and other unpleasant issues like that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Angela Castile, great job yesterday to the attorneys. I will say that it was brought up that 73% of the voter base voted in favor of giving the utility back to the city who ran it into the ground to the tune of $1.8 billion. The 73%, part of that was influenced by one of the commissioners at Rights Union. And so therefore, you can't necessarily say that it was 73% of the vote. Not to mention, those of us who live outside of the city didn't get to vote, but yet we are ratepayers. Thank you.
Thank you.
All I got to say, Donald Shepard, on the record, all I got to say is thank you. You're doing a great job, and I vote for it to pass.
Okay, no further public comment, back to the board for discussion.
I'd like to start off, Mr. Chair. I have spoken to some of the people across the street. There is a will to sit down and meet with us to see if there is common ground that we could resolve this. But I am also in favor of us continuing to move forward with our legal options. So I'm not against sitting down and discussing with them if they want to try to come to some sort of resolution. I don't think that we necessarily need to do it as a complete board, but maybe designate a couple of people and the CEO to go meet with the city manager and a couple of representatives from there and see if we can work our way through this before, I believe we have 30 days, if I'm not mistaken, to file the appeal.
From the written order. We don't yet have one.
Okay. So if we scheduled that, in the next 2 weeks, maybe we could go and see. And if it doesn't bear fruit, we always have the legal option to fall back on.
Thank you.
I'm not opposed to having a sit-down meeting, and again, I think it could be a couple of people, but I'm not sure what we're gonna get out of it. I think that we need to exercise our legal aspect of this. And the only thing I'd say is if we're gonna go sit down with them, let's not go. Tell them, come on over.
Yeah.
We've been going.
Yeah, no, I would just say that I think we need to go, when all this went down, it was very aggressive on their side with, frankly, like a fake Facebook account that said a lot of lies, a lot of other stuff. You have students that don't even have electric bills because it's included in their house. They're voting. They don't know what they're voting for. So they did a whole lot on their side, and maybe we didn't do enough. The board didn't, we weren't as aggressive because we're trying to keep the peace because we do live here and we are citizens, and none of us are anti-Gainesville. I love this place. Having said that, I think we need to be, we've moved for the CEO to appeal this and be aggressive, and I think we need to, whatever we need to do, and we'll discuss this board, we need to be more aggressive, and that's somehow open up finances to be more aggressive. Maybe we do that, Now, having said that, I know the budget's real tight, so I don't know, maybe put a quasi-bosh on the transfer or something like that so we can pull a few million from there to work at this and work it the other way, because this is just kind of ridiculous, So, but I think we should be aggressive, Ed, so.
Yeah, just to piggyback on what Ms. Castile said, 73% of the vote is just playing tricks with the numbers there. As actually you had probably 20% of the population voting, so 73% maybe of 20% voted for it. And again, there's a concerted machine and a lot of disinformation out there that I don't think people recognize that they have. In addition to the fact that all the bill payers were not represented. I don't see how anybody could vote against us being up here. It's not a political thing. Again, I disagree with that notion.
Mm-hmm.
We are all citizens here, and our only main concern is to keep the bills low, the electricity and water flowing as efficiently as possible. I believe we have the best utility system in the country, and we want to keep it that way. And so, you know, I'd be for pursuing our legal avenues in that. And just in addition to piggyback on Mr. Conish's comments, over the past 20 years, the city commission has taken almost $750 million of our money that we could have used to pay off our debt. We could have been debt-free. And now we're not, and we're in a hole. And that's because of the result of your city commission. So how you can vote for that and stand up here and defend that, I don't see how that's possible.
Okay, seeing as there's no more comments, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is general public comment.
Mr. Chair, Jim Conish, I have a packet for you and Mr. Belarski I'll give you after my comments, but it's going to pertain to your audit financial statements. I have a number of questions I'm going to submit to Mr. Belarski. I would like them answered, but here's a couple of them. How was the complete failure to bill or get reimbursed for county streetlights accounted for in your financial statement? That's like over $1 million or around $1 million. How does GRU know the amount of reimbursement required from the city pursuant to the applicable MOU if no bills were rendered? Were the surcharges properly assessed? Is the county paying the full cost? Is the city of Gainesville paying the full cost? Was this unbilled revenue included under the category unbilled revenue? What was the total GRU SLA loss on all services provided to the city of Gainesville in FY24? You continue to ignore my public records request for this. You are required by the charter to ascertain this information. The CFO testified that these SLA losses aren't on the books when Coates was drilling down on the IT losses. That's all in the record. And I want to read you something I got. When you basically, to escape an unconscionable PPA by paying more than twice an electric power plant is actually worth based on cost, based on what happened in Austin, and you're basically paying a huge penalty to escape an unconscionable contract, to put that on the books as an asset is extremely dubious without extensive notes. And when you have $1.9 billion in physical assets and $1.8 billion in debt, and $300 million of those assets is just an inflated number, you're insolvent. And I have charts of your net position since 2005 deteriorating. Your debt and liabilities skyrocketing. There's a very deceptive chart in your financial statement, your annual debt service going forward. You will not get back to this year's level until 2040, except for 1 year. The debt was refinanced and backloaded. You've been postponing this debt ever since it was incurred in surrounding the PPA and the solar feed-in tariff, which you haven't even talked about. The former mayor and her cronies are ripping the ratepayers off for more than the $68.5 million you're clawing back for over withdrawals, not accounting the SOA losses. They're taking more than that just by overcharging us for the power coming off their rooftop systems. They're getting paid 10 times for what goes out than for what comes in plain view, for 17 years. Is there any possibility the City Commission would like to make us commoners whole on that debacle, which Mr. Belarski, to his credit, he revealed this in a white paper, I think it was 2019. I never had any idea what the magnitude of that number was. And he recently wrote about it. He's coming up with lower losses, but the losses are gigantic. And, we could use that money right now. Since your plants are at the end of your useful life, and you have no firm availability, and you can't build another plant. You can't borrow the money. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Conish.
Good evening, Angela Castile. I am asking you guys to put the fluoride on the agenda. Upon looking into further, the fluoride is in different forms. So what goes on to our teeth with the dentist is sodium fluoride, I believe. I can't remember, but the hydrofluorosilic Thank you. Hydrofluorosilic acid is highly toxic, and it is evidenced by the SDS sheet. So I am asking for it to go on the agenda because it's definitely two different forms of fluoride. Thank you.
Howdy, I'm Marshall Rawson. I'll be brief because my wife went to Fernandina today and it's supper time and I haven't eaten and I got to go find something to eat because my wife went to Fernandina. But anyways, all I'm here to say is, government should not be in the business of being one's dental hygienist. Government's role should be to preserve life, liberty, and property. And it does a very poor job of that too. But that being said, I support bringing the fluoridization issue up on an agenda here in the near future. And that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Ramey Eagle Glenn. These are the words of Governor DeSantis last month. Do we want forced medication or do we want people to be able to choose medication? So when you're forcing it into the water supply, that's not really giving people the choice. Let people make decisions, no forced medication. Do you think our governor is a conspiracy theorist? The fluoride discussion is about medical choice and also transparency. In 2021, Gainesville led the way with forced vaccinations. City employees were told to get vaccinated for the good of the whole, or else lose your job, be ostracized from participating in society, and some people even talked about how they wanted to put the unvaccinated in quarantine camps. That is the spirit of authoritarianism, forcing everyone to take medical fluoride because some educated experts think they are in a superior position to force medication is the spirit of authoritarianism. As for transparency, I tested the website again because I want to be up to date and I want to be correct. There is no open, public-facing information about GRU's use of fluorosilic acid in our water. If you're talking about the common good, it is not a common thing for most members of the general public to look for public records or to make public records requests. So why would this information be concealed from the public? The annual reports for 2022 and 2023 on water quality that are used to present the state of the utility and water quality to the general public do not talk about how GRU is adding hydrofluorosilic acid into the water, but skirts the issue and says, actually, no, we have fluoride in the water because of runoff from fertilizer plants. There are no fertilizer plants in Alachua County. So the question is, is GRU intentionally trying to hide the fact of this fluoride chemical injection into our water. Regarding people's pools at home, GRU water is not your pool. Everyone knows not to purposely drink pool water because it has chemicals and pee in it. And to compare your pool at home to forcing an entire population to ingest a medicine via our drinking water supply is completely incorrect. Face the public and please put fluoridation on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Donald Shepard. Again, I'm up here speaking in behalf of the people. I thank her for bringing that information up. But in the last meeting, I believe y'all pointed the factors of why that was in the water, and you pointed that out to the citizens. So that's out of the bag, so to speak. That wasn't forced upon the people. It was in the agenda by the city commission, and the city commission made, as she had stated, they made you to keep your job or get a position in the city that you had to take these COVID-19 shots, in which I did. And now I'm sterile because of it. And my doctor took and told me that we have to put you through a remedy to take and get over that. But I want, with that out of the way, I want to take and state the fact that GRU has pointed out the ins and outs of this chemical being in the water, and so, we're gonna have to move on with it, because that is what it is. So that's all I have to say, and thank you for doing a good job, y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Shepard. Thank you.
The next item is director comments.
Let me start off. All right, on the question of fluoridation. I understand people are upset because this COVID and people forced vaccination, but we're comparing something that was developed within the span of a year with a decades-long practice. It's not the same. And fluoridation was initiated decades ago to help protect the teeth of the population. Basically, we have people come up here and show us material data sheets showing it as a toxin and a neurotoxin and stuff like that. First of all, the EPA and the FDA do not, just even in the smallest of dives in the research, do not classify stuff as a neurotoxin in and of itself. They talk about dosages. So it's toxicities represented in the dosages, and we're talking about parts per million. The majority of the studies that talk about fluoridation, they're talking about extraordinary levels of fluoridation above what the EPA recommends, which is 4 parts per million. GRU is at 1 part per million, but we only go to 0.7. So we're only at 0.7 compared to amounts that are 5 parts per million greater, which is a significant difference when you're talking about harm. As a matter of fact, a lot of these studies, they use the 1 to 0.5 to 1 as a control. And if you know anything about studies, the control thing is the safe level. And so they use that to compare against higher levels, some of it that occurs naturally in places like China, where there's a high fluoridation in the water and there's an effect on the population. In addition to that, they don't take out the factors like arsenic and other chemicals that are in there that may be affecting the study results. So there hasn't been really any conclusive study around that shows. As far as the pool analogy is, it just goes to show we put acid in our pools and we can still swim in it, is because of the dosage. It adjusts the pH in the pool. We're not worried about people swallowing it because of the dosage, and that's what we're talking about here. There's no conspiracy on phosphates and getting chemicals from phosphate companies as a matter of business. That's what businesses do, is they sell off their waste products so they don't have to dump them in landfills, so it doesn't get in the water supply in higher concentrations. And then the Senate bill itself. If in fact the Senate comes out and they say, yeah, we're going to take fluoridation out of the water, well, then I guess we're going to go take fluoridation out of the water. But the bottom line is, if you read the bill, it doesn't outlaw fluoridation of water. So it just means that if you want fluoridation, you go purchase it. So it changes who's buying the water and who's not buying the water, is all it's doing. So you think if fluoridation was some dangerous chemical, they would have outlawed it outright. But that's not the case. So I see no reason to change a decades-long policy unless something changes with the legislature. And that's my opinion on that.
Is Mr. Connor still here, or did he leave? He keeps bringing up that he's not getting records requests, like, given to him when he asks for them. If that's true, like, I'd be disappointed, so just want to kind of make sure that that's not true, that he is getting the information that he's supposed to. I believe he probably is, but it's something he likes to say, so I just want to make sure that's not happening, that he really is getting anyone that asks for public records requests, whether I agree with what they're looking at or not. Are we putting anything else in the water besides fluoride? Like, or we just pull it out of the ground and drink it? There's other stuff going in the water, Ed?
Well, there's numerous chemicals that are added for sanitary, purposes, whether it's chlorine or other things.
So there's a little more going on than just one little thing, I'm assuming, right? The water people are doing quite a job to make this stuff safe to drink in the first place.
Oh, they test dosages and samples from the finished water, all the time. They have their own lab at the facility. I mean, if you want, Debbie Doherty could provide more information, but I can assure, the board that it's a long-established practice with rigid protocol. And I'd add in this case, I think for me, the issue is if, 0.7 is too much, there's already 0.3 in the water.
Right, where do we go?
Are people saying we ought to extract 0.3 out of the water?
Right, yeah. Well, then, I guess the rest of the comment would be really for the board, so the board knows where I stand on it. I just think we have real problems at GRU that we're fixing, and like you said, we've done a lot of good, and that's where I want to keep going. The fluoride thing, if the governor takes it out, fine, or if it's something we have to address in the future, I'm not saying no. I just know that, like, every time I have a meeting with Ed and the executives, there's a lot going on, a lot that needs to be taken care of, and that's what I've been focused on personally. So if it's something we bring up in the future, I'm not opposed to talking more about it, having the water people come up and talk about all this stuff. I just don't know that it's an issue yet with everything else we got going on, with debt and lawsuits and headaches and, things of that nature, while improving things all the while, and letting the executives work. So that's just my take on it for now, personally. That's more for you guys. So.
Thanks, David.
Yeah, so one of just to address Mr. Conish is, I think the problem is they're wanting to charge him because it's very extensive what he's asking for.
Which is
That's
reasonable.
why he's not
Yeah.
getting the request. He approached me once, and because there's a certain amount we can give you, but he has extensive requests. So I think he needs to add to the rest of that conversation,
So
perhaps.
that's probably left some of the information out. That makes
Yeah,
sense.
well,
Yeah.
I think so.
That tracks.
If I may add to that.
Go ahead.
Yeah. We're also not supposed to provide additional information. We don't provide a new document. We just give documents that exist. And in the case of Mr. Conish and others, they're asking us to
Formulate a document.
formulate a document, do homework, create another document, which is not our duty to do.
And there's a charge for that, if we elect to do it.
Well, no, we just don't, I'll defer to the attorney.
Under a public records request, municipality is not required to, a public entity is.
No,
not
I know, but
required
I'm
to
saying
create that.
if we did elect to formulate, there would be a fee for
You
that.
certainly could charge for
Right,
that.
and he doesn't want to write a check for that, I don't believe, so.
Yeah, I just want on the record that we're not holding paperwork back from people, is what I was trying to point out, Yeah.
So again, unfortunately, the young lady left, but it keeps on being brought up, the 73% of the voters, that's not true. 73% of the people that voted, okay, did this, but not the ratepayers. 23%, or is it 23% live outside the county?
No, we have.
32.
Yeah, we're in the 30s.
32% of the people, and I'll point to that every day they finally close the blinds, so I can't see it. It says owned by the people it serves. That is not true if you're saying, that, you know, that they voted like that. So now, it was pointed out to me that only city residents can change the charter. That is true. But put that into your statement, because it's not factual that the ratepayers, as the young lady said, the people that own GRU are the citizens. That's not true. Just saying it one more time, probably say it until I die. Also, Mr. Blarski, correct me if I'm wrong, but on our feed-in tariff, we're down to about 18.5 megawatts, and I believe we're paying roughly $285 a megawatt.
I know the number is in the high 200s, whether it's 285, it could be 280, it could be 290.
But it's astronomical.
Well, it's 10 times
Right.
ostensibly the cost of our own production.
But what I want to, and he's right, and again, he likes to throw out the big 10 times number, but we have 18.5 megawatts, and that's divided, you know, that's solar, so it's only when the sun's shining.
That's
So that's divided by a factor of 27 or, you know, I forget the formula, but it's not, we're not pouring money out the window. It was a terrible deal, we should have never done it, but it's not bankrupting the GRU.
Correct.
Okay. I'm done. Thank you. I just misinformation.
Yes, Director Jacobs, thank you for all of that. I kind of stole my thunder on the fluoride because I've done my research as well. And it'd be nice if there was a study out there that really nailed this down. But at this point, I agree with Director Haslam as well. We have a lot of other things that are more pertinent. And the state legislature, it looks like, is going to take this up. So at that point, we will fall in line. So also, the same thing with the voting. We are notorious for the community not going out to vote. So when you say things pass at 70%, you really have to look at that voter turnout, because it is nowhere near 70% of the voters. And with what the judge said, I have people that I spoke to and asked me, you know, what is your opinion on this referendum? And they said, well, we voted for it because that was going to keep you guys and keep the authority going. And I said, no, it is not. So that right there tells you that the language was misleading and the information being put out there. So I think we do need to do a stronger job as we continue this legal, is involving communications department more and getting our messaging out there as soon as possible and continue to hammer that message so that we can get all of these misconstrued things out of the way and out of the public limelight and counteract them, because it's what's needed. The people need to be educated in the proper way about what is false and what is reality. So thank you all.
All right, thank you.
The next item on the agenda is CEO comments.
There's a lot that's occurred since our last meeting, but I wanted to pull a few things together from my impressions of yesterday and compare them to the comments of today. I think generally, given the way our legal structure works, it's not a time for anyone to be doing victory laps. It's interesting to hear people say, what are we going to do now? We have to do this. Or you have some folks that come to the lectern and say, you know, it's time for you to leave and you need to do X, Y, Z. No, we're following the law. And the law is replete with appeals. And the decision isn't made until the final authority makes their opinion known and the legal avenues are exhausted. And that's what we're doing as an organization. So any quick type of settlement of this, I think is premature, even to the extent that we talk about meeting with folks at the city. I have direct communications with the city manager. We're working on the various points of interconnection. We have folks that are working well with each other. I don't want to fall victim as an organization to the political subterfuge that's out there and can draw us into something that, as you've all said, we have, for my term, you have bigger fish to fry. Doing a great job as an organization. The chair, I really appreciate you acknowledging, you know, what's occurred here. And, you know, it was really important for me, after all that's happened, to give a message to the employees of GRU and to say, yesterday wasn't what we expected, but there were a lot of good things that came out of it, and we're going to work hard, and we're going to continue the fight. And I just want that to be known. So the one thing I did have pre-planned for this was there have been a lot of discussion about the customer charges that GRU has on their bills. And typically, somebody will mention it at one of the meetings, and I've heard from some of the board members about it. So I asked my crack team at BFA to put some numbers together. And could you put that up for me? I think it's really important if you go to the next, I'd do that. Crack CEO.
Yeah.
Man, nobody said that.
So we've seen numbers fly around about on a GRU bill, if nobody is using any of the 4 services, what do they get charged? They get charged $46.70. What the heck is that? It's for what the cost we incur to provide that infrastructure, whether it's used or not. That's the cost of doing business. That's the cost of getting that capacity to turn on the water faucet to you, or to flush the toilet and send things to us, or to flip the switch and get the light, or to turn on your oven and get the natural gas to heat the oven. That's the cost of getting those things to you. And we have to protect the revenue of the organization in a way that when usage goes up and down, we are still covering those basic inherent services that all of us need. It's kind of a capacity payment. But it's not the hundreds of dollars that folks...
119.
119 that folks talk about. So you look at the residential electric, and I know that these things are small. We're going to try to get the screens bigger so people can see them. But if you look at GRU, our electric is $17. Clay Electric is $34. Never hear about that. Some strange reason. Ocala is $20. OUC is $18. Yes.
Actually, Baker Tilly recommends ours to be at 34.
You have a very good memory.
Because I've always said so that we need to do a backflip there. Baker Tilly recommends this to be at about 34.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes, you're
Sorry
exactly. Yes.
butt in.
No, that's exactly right. So as you can see, there's a bunch that are down around $13, $14, and we're at $17. So the thing about Clay Electric is they're $34 and it's only electric. But as Paul Harvey used to say, for the rest of the story, you got the water charge. Where's GRU? Oh, we're down at $9.45. What's the highest one? Lake City at $20.85. So we're in the last quadrant for water charges. You go to the wastewater charge. We're at $10.50. There's only 3 lower than GRU in that regard. And then if you go to the gas, residential gas, we're the lowest. We're $9.75. So I think it's really important to understand the whole picture when you start talking about customer charges. It's there for a reason, and GRU is by no means gouging its customers for this. It represents those costs that we incur to get that capacity to you. And we've had rate studies that have said, folks, you probably ought to raise it up. So that was my presentation. If you have any comments.
Thanks for that. Thanks for the clarification. Do you have this on GRU's website for those that might be interested?
We will get it up there.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think
I'd
that
love
would
to
be
see it
able
in
to
the
help.
electric bill. So
Yeah.
read it.
Yeah.
Our next item on the agenda is the attorney comments.
Mr. Chair, a lot of what I was going to say, I think, has already been said. We respect the judge's opinion from yesterday. It is certainly not in line with our position. but it's not the end of the road. And I can't agree more with Ed when he says that nobody should be running victory laps right now on either side. There's a lot of work to be done. There is a very much dig-in mentality that I think everyone should have of this is not going to be a quick result for anyone on either side. I know that that's what we would all prefer, but unfortunately, the legal system does not work as quickly as we would like it to in most instances. However, we were successful on our count two, so we do agree that was the correct ruling by the court. We believe that is accurate. I think that you've mentioned earlier that there have been some instances of exemplified misunderstanding of the ballot language. So we're hopeful that the City Commission and the authority can work together. In the event that we do have some sort of meeting, I will just reiterate that if we're going to have more than one member of our authority, we'll need to make sure that it's a noticed public meeting. Alternatively, one member of the authority could go with the CEO. So just to reiterate that, we are looking into a litany of options. Our office was represented yesterday by myself, Scott Walker, Leonard Ireland, and then David Theriac from Theriac in Spain, obviously, who has been working with us, was there as well. Your team is working to figure out all potential avenues. Obviously, the legislature will have its own decision-making based on yesterday. I haven't heard anything about what that decision-making may be, but the legal route is not the only route. So that's something to keep in mind, and we will keep you apprised of anything that we figure out as a potential option. I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone may have.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is resolutions, but we have none for this meeting, so it will be business discussions, with the first one being 2025-247, GRU fiscal year 2026 budget presentation of customer sales and revenue forecast. The recommendation is that the authority just hears the presentation by staff.
And we're bringing up Karen Fiore. Oh, I'm sorry. Karen Fiore is going to be delivering the presentation, and I'll turn over the clicker once they bring up the presentation. Well, I'm going to talk about them. Okay. I'm going to intro her.
Be nice.
So I just wanted to set up the presentation here. The agenda for the presentation is that, we're going to start with the budget timeline, go over the preliminary budget projections. Most importantly, though, we're going to be talking about the budgeted revenues, which will drive what our expenses will be. Going into this year, we've taken the philosophy that we're going to be a customer-first organization. So we have to recognize what our organic revenue growths are and how do we live within those limitations. I'm not going to steal any of Karen's thunder, but we do have limitations in terms of organic growth. So up to now, we started the budget back in September 2024, and we've talked to you folks in January on the debt, liquidity, cash and reserves, and this is the next element of that. So the one point I want to make with this is we have May, and we were originally talking about May having the O&M capital and fuels and waiting until June to do the final budget. But I think with the thoroughness of talking about the revenue, coming back with the expenses, I think we can do that all in one meeting and have our budget pulled together in May. And if there are some issues, we can always go back, and if the board wants to see different changes, different things, we can come back in June if you'd like to do that. So that's my my intro, and I'll walk this over. Karen. Thank you, Karen.
Good afternoon. I don't know if that's on. I'm loud enough, though. Karen Fiore. Am I going the wrong way already?
Yeah, you
Okay. Sorry about that. So to start, I wanted to point out some important key takeaways around our forecast. So consumers have been conserving our natural resources, which translates to lower usage. And this is a main driver why GRU is only experiencing a 0.5% revenue growth per year. Some other constraints in consumption levels include your minimal population growth, as well as more efficient appliances that we've been seeing. And then after the recession, your consumers adjusted to that lower usage that they started to due to the recession. So they were saving money because they couldn't afford it anymore, and they discovered that they were actually able to continue at those same levels. So we haven't seen those spikes from that pre-recession. Another takeaway is that revenue projections are at existing rates with no increases in our revenue projections. It is not until we compare our revenues against our budgeted projected expenditures. Once we do that, then we'll be able to note if there is a need for any increase or decrease in any of our rates. But as right now, your revenue projections are at no increases. And then finally, we have flat revenue growth, and coupled with our high fixed costs, this means that GRU has to be very strict on keeping our expenditure growth flat. Each year, we project the number of customer unit sales and revenues within our water, wastewater, gas, and electric system. The forecast inputs we use include internal and external sources. Our internal sources come from decades of our monthly billing information as well as peak demand. And our external inputs include population and household size estimates, and we get these yearly from the Bureau of Economic and Business Research, as well as we use income and employment estimates that we get from Woods and Pool. Again, we get these yearly. Our climate data comes from the temperature and the rainfall that is reported to the National Weather Service from our Gainesville Regional Airport. The outputs, as mentioned in the first slide, the consumer usage has changed over the years. So that usage change is reflected in our projections. And I just wanted to make note that we're proud to say that GRU revenue forecasts are within 1% to 2% of actuals each year. This slide shows the impact of those more efficient appliances over the years. So it's showing you from 1990 to 2021, the reduction in electricity for refrigerators, washing machines, and dishwashers. Refrigerators alone decreased 41%, washing machines 78%, and dishwashers 56%. Those are huge decreases in electric usage. But it's important that dishwashers and washing machines, they're not just using electricity. They're also more efficient on the water usage. That's less water going in, means less water coming out, so you're now impacting those other two systems. Other appliances such as hot water heaters are more efficient, therefore you're using less gas, as well as think about your toilets are using a lot less water. So the changes have been a lot of impact on our sales over the years. So it's been a very large impact. The next couple of slides, we're going to go over customer sales projections as well as customer counts per system. And each slide will show you our last two forecasts, so 24 forecast and 25 forecast, which is our current forecast. You'll see the historical data and then obviously the 20-year forecast. each slide will also show you the average annual growth rate. So starting with our electric customers. Here you're seeing the number of electric customers, and you can see the blue dotted line, that was your historical actual data. Your red line with the squares, that's our current projection, and then the 24 from last year. And you can see that those two forecast projections have right on top of each other, very close. Average annual growth rate at 0.63%. Electric sales is measured in megawatt hours. Again, you can see that the 25 is slightly growing at a faster rate compared to last year's forecast. This is mostly due to higher residential sales, and this is looking into the future for EVs being charged at residential homes. And then you see some dips in prior years. And we talked about the increase in energy efficient appliances, but you're also seeing here the improvements to building envelopes. So your walls, your doors, your windows, your foundations, all those building codes and being more energy efficient. So that's why you're seeing some of those dips there. Going on to the water customers. Very close to last year's forecast as well. This year's forecast at 0.53% annual growth rate. Your water sales, not a lot of growth, which puts a lot of upward pressure on the rates over time in the water system. You can see last year's forecast very similar to this year's forecast, 0.32% annual growth. You see a little dip there in fiscal year 20, that was during COVID. And water is measured in kgals. Wastewater customers, like the other systems, very close to last year's forecast, 0.58% average annual growth. Wastewater billings. Again, close to last year, 0.38% annual growth. What you're seeing in the increase in fiscal year 22, I don't know if you can see that from your seat, this is when we changed our billing to 100% metered water. It used to be 95%. In fiscal year 22, we went to 100% with a cap of 12 kgals. So that's why you're seeing that little bump. Number of gas customers. Again, 25 forecast right on top of 24's forecast, 0.62% annual growth. And gas sales, gas is measured in therms. Historically, the gas system has very little sale growth. This is a system that's it's more seasonal. So in the winter, the gas system helps meet heating loads during the winter months. An example of that, if you look at 2010, you'll see a large spike there. That was an example of a very cold winter. And annual average growth rate is at 0.38% for this year's forecast. This slide is showing you the total non-fuel revenue, what we projected in 2025, and what we project for 2026. Total revenues for 26 coming in at almost $317 million. That's about 1.6 million more than last year's projection, which equates to about 0.52% increase over last year. We have to remember that our costs typically increase around inflation rates, and 0.52 is a lot lower than inflation. So this puts a long-term rate pressure on us. And then the summary in the next budget steps. So we've completed the projections for our revenue, fuel, and non-fuel O&M for the FY26 budget. There's no changes to the base rate change projections that you saw last year during the 2025 budget. So what that means is that last year we showed you our projected 25 budget as well as 26 budget. And that 26 budget base rate increases did not change. So there's 0 base rate increases for electric, 1.75% in our water system, and 1% in our wastewater system. And those are the same percentages you saw last year for 2026. As Ed mentioned, we will present the proposed final budget to the authority in May. And the remaining 20 slides that you have in the appendix go into a little bit more detail per system for you. And if you have any questions.
Just real quick, reflecting back when I was on the city commission, I know we were extremely proud of not having rate increases. Now looking back, I think small rate increases as we go, so we didn't have to do any drastic rate increases, would have been wise. And we're taking those into factor also, because obviously if inflation's going up at 3.5 and we're at 0.52, we're gonna have a problem. So just for me, I'd rather have smaller increases as we need it versus all of a sudden go, hey, we gotta go up 15% because we've been playing nice guy for 5 years. So is that looked at?
Yes, and I'll let Ed do more detail, but under his leadership, he's keeping those rates lower, but also making additional cuts elsewhere.
So that's, I guess that's we're economizing and we're fixing things in-house to balance the rates at this point. But in the future, we're gonna have to go up CPI or something, down the road. I mean, we can't go flat forever.
Yeah, your memory is bringing everything home. You're exactly right, Director. We're in this transition period where, and part of this presentation is to really show you the business model. You all have worked in businesses, right? We're growing at 0.5%. What do you do when you have a business that's growing at 0.5%? You better become efficient. You better watch your pennies, and you better do a good job on the expense side of the equation. And that's exactly what we're doing over this period of time when we get closer to the average for the state for all our services. And, then we may be able to consider other things. There's other ideas for revenue. I mean, on the electric side, we're still looking at things like data centers. There are other possibilities to expand natural gas. There's all kinds of opportunities which, under the board's leadership, we can now go after, as opposed to the city commission when you were hamstrung by that. So I think over the next few years, you're going to see a tightening of how we look at expenses and look at more productivity, right size the various areas. You're going to see something a little later. We're going to talk about the relationship with the Energy Authority and the natural gas marketing and the power marketing that they do for us. We're looking at them right now. That's a rock that we've uncovered and said, hey, there's value there that we're not capturing. So everywhere within the organization, we're saying, where is there value, as opposed to, let's face it, the way we used to operate was, hey, we need a 3% increase in our expenses, and we need a rate increase. And sometimes the commission would just say no, right? But there was never that linkage between reducing expenses and the lower growth of the organization. And now, as we exist, with the ability to pay a general fund transfer we can afford, all of a sudden, all the components of our business are coming together. And yes, I said business, because GRU is a business. I hope that answers your question.
It does, and just a little follow-up. I drove through Newberry and Trenton, saw Chesapeake drilling, and it bothers me just like it does you, so we got to work on that. But also, so what I take from that, Mr. CEO, is you're saying this organization, this business is tightening its belt before we ask our customers to tighten their belts. What I got out of that.
Wow, can we get a recording of that and put it on our website? And they can, that's exactly right.
But we're showing, we're doing it.
Well, how can you ask other people
Exactly.
to do that when you can't do it yourself?
I don't think you'll get an argument from this board. I just like people to hear it, actually.
No, you hit the nail on the head. That's exactly the philosophy that we're trying to employ.
Great. Keep doing it.
Yeah, I think we just need to, like you're saying, aggressively get that message out without being crazy about it. Like, we are saving money, we are making things better, we are saving, what, $5-6 million on gas this year?
Yeah, 4.6 million was the anticipated annual. That's correct.
Yeah, without distracting or hurting anything else. We're not killing the power plant in the process. We're not hurting any of our equipment or people, right? I just think as long as people realize we're more bang for our buck, I think that's something we really need to talk about really every time we get an opportunity, frankly.
But that's what we have to do.
Anybody else have any other questions? Thank you for your hard work. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is 2025-277, informational item on GRU fiscal year 2025 financing activities. Recommendation is just to hear a presentation from staff.
It's my favorite part of the night.
Anytime with Mark's my
It's
favorite
it's
time.
my favorite part of the night, right here.
Yep.
When
Just
you get,
spending time
when
with
you get
Mark.
up here. You know?
Priceless. Yep.
You guys have been spending way too much time talking to the general manager. I'm going to be exceedingly brief. You're aware, I mean, we have a $1.8 billion debt portfolio, so both the financing team, both the internal and the external financing team is, we aggressively monitor and manage that portfolio. We're always looking for opportunities to execute transactions to lower the cost related to our debt portfolio. You can see since 2017, the transactions we've executed along those lines have saved over $1 billion over the life of the issues, with the majority of that coming from, the DHR acquisition back in 2017. What we wanted to do tonight was just very briefly, the board provided to the CEO and the CFO the authority to pursue some financing transactions. We've executed on some of those. We wanted to talk to you about them. We have extended our $150 million line of credit with U.S. Bank. We renewed our liquidity facility that supports our 2019 variable rate bonds. You just mentioned the natural gas prepayments. We've executed 3. We're up to the 50% of our projected load that you authorize us to get to. Once all 3 of those flows start, and actually 2 of for the first 2 prepayments, gas flows started yesterday. For the 3rd prepayment, it'll start in November. Once they're all in place for a full year, it's about $4.6 million in annual savings that goes directly to the customer bill. And then finally, on March 18th, we executed the 2017A forward starting swap. That's about a $250 million swap against our 2017 Series A bonds. Between 2027 and 2040, this transaction is going to net us just about $26 million in savings over that period of time versus where we sit today.
Hey, Mark, there's one thing you said there on the natural gas, and I just want everyone to understand. It doesn't necessarily, the $4.6 million in natural gas prepayment is a savings. It's an absolute savings. But it doesn't mean that the price of gas can't go up. So it won't necessarily reduce the fuel adjustment. Okay? But it would keep it from going up higher than it will. And if we're where we think we are, it could have other positive impacts. But, sometimes you see a savings, you say, oh, that means the natural gas bill is going down. It just means that it might not go up as much if we didn't have it otherwise.
Mr. Chair.
Ed, clarification, you're saying fuel adjustment, but that gas flowage also goes to our stoves and hot water heaters also. So there's recognized holding and pricing there also.
Correct.
So it's not just on the electric side.
That's right. It's your natural gas bill.
Right,
as well
I'm
as
saying
part
they're
of-
going to recognize it also at the stoves.
Exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah, it's for power and for our LDC system. That's it. Do you have any questions?
Man,
That's not enough Mark's time.
Yeah.
I know. What else can you explain
Well, we
to
can
us?
just sit up here, we can just sit up here and chat if you'd like to.
No, sir.
All right, thank you, Mark. Thank you.
Where's Mark and what have you done with him?
Yeah, look at the smile. I love it.
Just so you know, back at the city, he goes on for like an hour and a half, back when he was there.
Thank you. Our next item on the agenda is 2025-279, State of the Utility Monthly Update, February 2025. The recommendation is the GRU Authority. Here's a monthly update from our utilities operational areas.
All right, good evening, Chair, Board, Directors.
Wait, where's Tom?
Yeah, where's
Yeah,
Mr.
so,
Where's
I
Tom
was
Brown?
about to say, you upgraded.
Yeah.
so I'm Chad.
We brought in a new model.
So I'm Chad Parker. I'm the Energy Delivery Officer for GRU, and I'm filling in for Tom tonight. I'm going to give you an update on the state of utility. So I'll jump in. So for the month of February, we had one recorded injury. We had a worker apprentice have a injury to the foot, and they were treated and returned to work the next day. And then we also had two vehicle collisions, both of which were rear-end collisions where GRU employees were rear-ended. I thought it was important, though, to note, because it's crazy when you think about this, but in the month of February, we drove roughly 197,000 miles, to complete our work. And then fiscal year to date, so looking from October to present, it's almost 1 million miles. So to get around this city, drive around, that's a lot of miles, a lot of awareness, to avoid accidents. So. I want to talk a little bit about compliance. So whether it's electric, water, or gas, you're running a municipal utility, everything's driven by compliance. And so I'm happy to say there's no violations, outstanding issues with compliance for the month of February. And I did want to mention, because Tom mentioned it last time, in May we're going to have an audit, a NERC SIP audit. Basically, what they want to do is make sure that we're protecting our bulk electric system from, electronic or cybersecurity or, physical attacks. So right now we're working on getting all that information over to them so they can review it prior to the audit, and we look for a successful audit. I'm going to jump into energy supply a little bit. So right now we have 4 units that are supporting our load. So we have DH1, DH2, DHR, and Kelly. And DHR returned to service this morning. It was in a 6-day outage for a boiler tube leak. So it came back online today, and we're going to keep DH1 online just because the summer load, you saw how hot it was today, so we're going to keep it up until it's, not needed. We have a couple planned outages going on right now. So the SEC, our Wartzilla, our main unit out there now, is doing its 64,000 hour overhaul. So that's a pretty big task there. Began last week, and it'll go through April, so the end of the month. And then in the interim, we brought in our second unit, which is a solar unit out there, so it's going to carry what load it can until we get the Wartzilla back up. And then one of our combustion turbine units at Deer Haven, which is CT3, it's going through its annual borescope inspection. So essentially, we're running a camera through it right now, looking at the turbine, all the internal workings of that generator, make sure everything's up to par. So when it returns, it'll go back into standby mode.
By the way, he said a solar unit. It's not a solar unit. It's solar.
Solar, yeah.
Yeah, it's not solar.
It's not like solar to me.
No. Yeah.
Works best at night.
Hey, listen, he's a power plant guy, so. We do have one pending unplanned outage right now, so we're going to do a short duration outage on DH2. When we did a monthly inspection, we found a heat exchange leak on it and a sticking turbine throttle valve. So we're waiting on parts, and when those parts come in, we'll put that into outage. So we're hoping to start that the week of April 21st and then return it to service by the first week of May. Our energy delivery, we'll talk a little bit about reliability stats. So we had a few, the outages increased in the month of February. We had 71 total outages. So we served roughly 102,000 customers in February, and those 71 outages affected 2,000 customers, average about 5,200 minutes of outage time. And if you look into the report, you can see there's different, causes for those outages, whether it's vegetation, it could be a car versus a pole, could be animals. A lot of causes of that. Of the 71, 60 were overhead, and 11 were underground. I wanted to mention a little bit about the AMI meter deployment. Tom mentioned it last presentation, but this is a ever-evolving, long process. And right now we're 87% complete, and that seems like, it seems like the number's slowly creeping. But I'll tell you, when I started working on this project and continue to champion it to the end, I'd leave the EOC, I'd leave the admin building, I'd go home and I'd look down all these streets, I'd look at all these houses, and I'd think, man, there's a meter or 3 at every one of these houses. And like, this is a daunting task to change out every one of these meters. But when I look at it now and I say, okay, we're 87% complete, that means we put in over 193,000 meters, replaced them. And that's a huge undertaking for a utility of our size. We did it without, calling in third-party, installers. We've hired in-house for temporary employees, and it's been a small group, and we've accomplished a lot. So I wanted that to be known. I feel like it's important. It's going to revolutionize how we do things, not only for our customers to see that data, but also to empower our folks in the customer service area to use the data to help our customers. So just kudos to that group. A lot of work being done, and we're almost at the finish line now. As far as gas goes, so you'll see a press release if you haven't already. Starting this weekend, we're going to test our transmission line. We have one gas transmission line. It runs from our University Gate Station to the UF's cogen, Duke's cogen plant. And every 6 years, PHMSA requires us to test it to make sure the integrity of the pipe is there. It's a high-pressure gas line, and they want to make sure that the max allowable operating pressure, can withstand that. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and Saturday, we'll take the gas out of that line. And then Sunday morning, or in the early hours of Sunday morning, we'll fill that line with nitrogen and we'll test it to 1,400 PSI. Yeah, so we'll test that for an hour or so, and we're hoping for a good test. And when that's complete, we'll reintroduce gas and we'll get that stuff back.
What's standard operating PSI in that pipe?
750.
Wow.
So, but what you'll see is sections of Archer Road will be shut down as we do this test. So I think we'll start somewhere around 1 a.m. and we'll probably finish 6, 7 in the morning on Sunday morning. All right, a little bit about water, wastewater. So month of February was pretty much business as usual, but we wanted to talk about, 3 large projects that we have going on right now. A couple of them are lift stations. So lift station 1, which is Southwest 2nd Ave and Southwest 34th Street, we're doing a major overhaul out there right now, and that happens to be our largest lift station. And then we're also doing some force main work at lift station 21, which is on Newberry Road and Fort Clark Boulevard. And then another project we have right now going on is Southwest 24th Avenue. We're doing a force main replacement through there. So if you're traveling down 24th between Tower Road and 91st, you'll see all the pipe out there. You'll see some signage, some equipment out there. So we're replacing that force main. And then obviously a lot of that stuff is proactive work. I mean, that happens every day we do that. And with the proactive work, we find a lot of reactive work too. I mean, it's a 100-plus-year-old utility, which means there's a lot of infrastructure in the ground that's getting old. So we did find 2 things on our wastewater system. We have a force main that we're having issues right now that we're going to have to do some work on in the near future. It's going to be Northwest 34th Street, 16th Avenue area. We've made repairs over the years to it, but it's at the point now it's kind of at the replacement point. So, and then we've been working behind in Hale behind Childs Elementary, I think it is, working on some gravity sewer out there. So a lot of work being performed by the wastewater group. And then one other thing we wanted to go over, so we kind of want to introduce a new segment, I guess, to this and kind of show you a brief video of, a day in the life of some of these folks that are out there. Because we come in here, we talk about the stuff that we're doing, but sometimes it doesn't resonate because you don't see, what they're actually doing. So tonight, we're going to show you a quick video. In February, early February, we started a new group of line worker apprentices. So we brought 8 new folks in. And essentially what they're doing is they're starting a career here. And their first 40 hours on the job in that career is spent on a pole, learning how to climb, learning how to use their tool, trust their equipment, and it's a rough week. But what it does is it gets them geared up for the rest of their career. And what's significant about, like our line workers here at GRU is they're trained to do everything. So you can take an apprentice, and as they go through this program, they'll complete it in 4 years, and then they'll continue that education. And it's shown every year. Mutual aid comes around, storms come through, and everybody's requesting GRU. And it's because you can take a line worker apprentice and train them through the program where they can work on a 120-volt street light or a 230,000-volt transmission line. So we're just going to show you a quick video of pieces of that week and what it looked like.
I need your shoulders and your waist. I need this to stay strong all day so you can work.
Better think about what you're doing, Tanner.
3, 2, 1, tie it.
Let's go. Let's go.
All right, there's my safety. Come on, move it. Move it. Let's go, Baker. Let's go, Baker.
So, yeah, it's pretty cool, you know, just to see these folks come in, learn how to do that, and then basically start a career and, you know, help citizens of our utilities. So, all right, that's all I have, pending any questions.
Any questions?
Yeah, of the AMI, there's some software that goes along with it that, for the consumers and stuff. Is that gonna go online after all the conversion happens, or can it go on earlier, or?
Yeah, so right now we're working on that. So it can go online now. We're working with a vendor right now to get that stood up and design and build that. Yeah.
Well, I'm thankful that we got the turbine fixed before all these tariffs went into place, because God knows what we would have paid for it coming out of Switzerland.
Great report. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
By the way, Chad, before you go away, was that you on the other side?
No, not
No.
that one.
Because we went out there that day when we saw the new apprentices, and Chad gets on his gear, and he goes up with the apprentices, and he's up there, and he's working with the folks. You know, when I worked in Pennsylvania, we had a power company, and what I always loved was getting, you know, supervisors that also did the job, you know, and Chad's a director that also does the job. They're very rare, you know, when they can do that. So he's out in the field with his folks, earning the respect, and he's a good guy.
Love to see our CEO up there.
I was gonna say, what do you climb that
That would
for?
be- I'd pay to see that,
Yeah.
actually.
You would probably see a
Yeah,
guy, you know, you
I
saw
would
the shards of wood
Yeah.
that would go down like,
Yeah.
as I went down the pole.
Moving on. The next item on the agenda is 2025-280, team member partner transition. The recommendation is the GRUA to authorize the CEO to negotiate, 1, exiting T as a member to a partner, or 2, source another option for natural gas and power. And power services as business conditions allow. CEO is to return to GRUA at the May meeting for final approval.
So, for a while now, GRU has looked at what its options are in terms of the large amounts of natural gas purchases it makes, as well as power marketing, which is getting power from the outside in or transmitting some of our power out. And what's a good price? You know, what is that? And you can see from the pie chart here that you know, T serves like 75% of our fuel expense by type. You know, they're transacting $68 million worth of purchases. It's not a small item. And that third-party procurement of natural gas is hedging strategies. It's the physical movement of the gas, the figuring out of the pipeline capacity, storage management. It's all the ancillary work that goes on with getting the power to the customers as well as to our power plants. And so they help with generation dispatching models and the settlement services, because they're the intermediary. It's just like the stock market. They have a trading desk, you know, for the services. And so right now, we handle that through the Energy Authority. And people hear about what the Energy Authority is, but don't really have a familiarity of what it does for GRU. So I'll just briefly talk about fact, we have a 28-year relationship. We literally were one of the original partners in 1998. So it was an original member, and we're called a member, not a partner. And so back in 2022, when I was still here, I was looking at, where we can get some of these options, where we can extract some value. T was formed in the state of Georgia. It's domiciled in the state of Florida. Its operating agreement was updated in 2024, but that's not the most important thing. There's 7 members right now: JEA, Santee Cooper, City Utilities in Missouri, AMP, GRU, GRUDA, NPPD, and GRU is probably the smallest member. We're about a 6-7%, somewhere between 6 and 7% equity owner in that business. And there's 70 participants nationwide. But what you need to know is that GRU has an equity position in the business of about $11 million. That's profits that have been earned over time that we don't get access to unless we leave the organization. We also come back to you from time to time. We've had these meetings where we put up guarantees to back the obligations literally of T. So we have $46 million in guarantees that are out there that, are risk elements to us. So I looked at what can we do to extract that $11 million because it comes to us in cash, and how can we release the $46 million in guarantees. So there's a process by which we can go through with T, offer them notification, and switch, either leave the organization, or we can switch to a partner position, which just makes them a vendor. So we believe that that cost won't be any higher than what we incur right now, but we'll have access to the $11 million of equity that flows through to the fuel, is a reduction of fuel for the organization, and we lower our risk in terms of the guarantees. So for me, I believe that that's really a customer-first strategy. There's no, I believe, additional value to have that equity in the organization sitting there, particularly when T, I believe, has moved away from its original mission, its original foundation, and that was to service nonprofits like ourselves that couldn't afford to build their own trading desk. And now they've engaged in organizations in California. They've taken on Long Island Light as a customer. They're almost a for-profit, well, they are a for-profit organization operating with guarantees from our organization. And I think the shift is not in the benefit of GRU customers. As a vendor, they're good. But there are other options out there as well. So, my recommendation here is that the authority authorize the CEO to negotiate the existing TEA as a member and convert exiting TEA as a member, moving to a partner, or source another option for natural gas and power services as business conditions allow. And I would return back at the May meeting for your final approval.
Any questions for Ed?
Yeah, I mean, what's the sales pitch to be a member? Why did we, why would we take that obligation and have that risk unless there's better pricing? There had to have been something, because I wouldn't have done this deal if there wasn't a benefit.
Well,
Other than you hold my 11 million, till I quit.
Right, I think T has accumulated those profits over a period of time. Most recently, they gained a lot of that equity with the gas debacle they had in Texas. they took some positions out there, which really frankly made me think about GRU's involvement in that. Because if you remember, that was an example of where people got fairly upset that prices skyrocketed because there was a supply and demand issue. And T took positions on the trading sides there. Could have went the other way.
Yeah.
And as a member, which is an owner, I don't want to be before you folks saying, well, they took a position here and, you know, the equity we had was 11 million and now it's 5 or something like that. I think they've done well by us in that regard, but I don't think it serves us well moving forward to be in that more speculative business. They do a good job trading. We can get in on those trades, but I don't think we ought to have the equity position.
You told me why we should get out. I'm not sure why we got in. That's what I mean, you know, if I bring you in as a partner and I'll say you're only going to recognize your profits when you quit or we liquidate, that's not a sales pitch, you know, give me dividends, we're in. So I'm just, what am I not seeing here that scares the hell out of me?
Okay, well, let me pose the question back to you, Director. Why would we get into the solar feed-in tariffs? Oh, why would we get into the biomass power purchase agreement? I mean, it was done at that period of time.
Okay.
It was indicative of the way we thought back in 1998. And, I mean, to be fair, I think there was the idea we could control the organization in a manner that best fit the organization. But what's happened is T has grown on to bigger and better things.
Okay.
And, you know, we got distributions from the Texas debacle for folks in Texas. But I think it's the whole control issue.
Okay. Yeah, I just, right now in today's presentation, it wouldn't have been a business deal I would have went into. But to your point, no, I wouldn't have a biomass plant or feed-in tariff either. So you answered that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was a little blunt with that.
Well,
I'm sorry.
Any other questions?
We need
Okay,
a motion on that? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I would like to make a motion that we empower the CEO to look at avenues and negotiate with the Energy Authority and bring back a report in May with recommendations. Second. Okay.
We have a motion and a second. Public comment?
I'm Don Shepard, and I think that's an excellent ideal. This is why his wife told me that he would be an excellent CEO back when he was working as the CEO for the city of Gainesville. When his wife said that, I said, you got a lot of faith in him. She goes, yes, I do. Look today, what he's doing. He is bringing to us the best of what his knowledge and education has brought us. And this is why we need to keep him on board. And we need to take a look into these matters and see if they are profitable for us so that we can move lightning speed ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shepard. Okay, no other public comment. Back to the board for any additional comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
The next item on the agenda is director comments.
I have nothing.
I've said enough tonight.
I'm going to shock you and say nothing.
Nothing for me.
And
Write that one down.
we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.